senior engineer smirked at the local mechanic. "If you can fix that engine, I'll marry you," she sneered, her words slicing through the hush of the Monday morning warehouse. Rebecca Williams, chief engineer at Precision Automotive in Detroit, held up her phone, recording every second as she repeated the challenge with a cold smile. "I'm capturing this, David. When you fail, everyone will see what happens when someone dares to take my place." David Jackson, 38, had spent more years under car hoods than Rebecca had spent in classrooms. His scarred hands told stories of rescues when every other technician had walked away. His small South Side workshop lacked the expensive tools and framed diplomas that decorated Precision's labs. What it did have was something no budget could buy: pure mechanical instinct. The experimental electric car engine on the bench had defeated 5 degreed engineers and cost the company $200,000 in failed tests. Their verdict: hopeless. "You have until Friday," Rebecca announced to the gathered staff. 5 days to succeed where our experts failed in 3 weeks. When you can't, everyone will understand why some people need to know their limits." Her outburst had started during a tense production meeting when someone joked that even David from the neighborhood shop could solve the problem faster. Furious, Rebecca had fired back, "Fine, bring in this miracle mechanic. If he fixes what 5 specialists couldn't, I'll sign him to a $200,000 contract myself." Everyone knew it was a trap. David had no college degree, no proprietary manuals, none of the high-end diagnostic gear worth more than most homes. "Look at him," muttered Jake, Rebecca's assistant. "He probably never even finished high school." David gave no sign he heard. His eyes stayed locked on the intricate engine, the steady gaze of a man who'd solved the impossible before. "Pathetic," Rebecca whispered loudly, filming every moment of what she thought would be his humiliation. Yet the calm in David's expression hinted at a quiet confidence that unsettled the onlookers. If you're drawn to stories where arrogance meets its reckoning, subscribe and follow along. You'll want to see how this challenge became Rebecca Williams's greatest mistake. Within hours, the video of her taunt raced through company chat groups. Colleagues shared it with snide comments and laughing emojis. David learned of it when his teenage daughter Jasmine came home from school, eyes red from crying. "Dad, everyone's passing around a video of you on TikTok. They're saying awful things." In the small apartment he'd shared with her since his wife's fatal car accident 5 years earlier, David felt the familiar burn of controlled anger, like the day doctors at the public hospital had said there was nothing more they could do. He pulled Jasmine close. "Don't listen to them, princess," he said softly. "Some people only feel big when they try to make others small." Inside David's mind, a quiet ledger was forming. Every mocking face, every cruel remark, every phone raised to capture his supposed humiliation. At Precision Automotive, Rebecca savored what she thought was certain victory. During Monday's meeting, she projected the viral video onto the conference room screen. Executives erupted in laughter. "Look at that confidence," she said, freezing the frame on David's calm nod. "It's almost sweet how some people never see their own limits." But CEO Thomas Crawford, a man who had built the company over decades of hard work, shifted uncomfortably. "Rebecca, don't you think this is going too far? He isn't even here to speak for himself." "That's exactly the point," Rebecca replied with a razor-sharp smile. "It's a lesson about maintaining standards. We can't waste time on people who don't belong." Her assistant Jake piled on. "My cousin's an MIT engineer. He says this type of motor is nearly impossible to repair without specialized gear. I bet David can't even read the diagrams." None of them knew that David had already spent 3 sleepless days surrounded by borrowed manuals and downloaded patent printouts. What he uncovered made their laughter ring hollow. The engine wasn't just defective, it had been tampered with. Only a veteran's eye could spot it. 3 tiny components damaged in a pattern too specific to be chance. Someone inside Precision had sabotaged their own prototype. "Interesting," David murmured, photographing every clue with his old phone. "Very interesting." By Tuesday, Rebecca escalated the mockery. She created a company-wide WhatsApp group titled Miracle Mechanic Updates, posting snide play-by-plays. Day 2. Our hero is probably still searching for the start button, she wrote, earning a chorus of laughing emojis. I bet he gave up and went to a bar, joked Carlos from accounting. Maybe he finally realized this job isn't for people like him, added Sandra from HR. While they laughed, David met with Samuel Torres, a 70-year-old retired master mechanic who had spent 40 years at Precision. That pattern of damage, Samuel said after studying the photos. Classic inside sabotage. I saw the same thing 15 years ago when someone tried to sink a project to push another contract. You still know people there? David asked. Samuel's eyes gleamed with knowing humor. Son, I know people in places you wouldn't imagine, and some of them will want answers. By Wednesday, Rebecca's confidence bordered on reckless. She even called a local radio show, bragging live on air. There's a neighborhood mechanic who thinks he can compete with real professionals, she said. Education matters. Some folks just have to accept their natural limits. What she didn't know. One of the listeners was Dr. Angela Morrison, a University of Detroit engineering professor and a seasoned investigator of industrial sabotage. Something about Rebecca's description of the unfixable engine set off alarms. That same afternoon, Angela walked into David's modest workshop. Mr. Jackson, she said, extending a hand, I'm Angela Morrison. I heard the broadcast, and I'd like to examine that so-called impossible engine. Angela Morrison carried herself with the quiet authority of someone who had earned respect in tough, male-dominated spaces. University professor? David asked. Angela smiled. Among other things, but today I'm here as someone who knows sabotage when she sees it. David opened the door to his workshop, finally revealing what he'd uncovered. While Rebecca flooded social media with mocking memes and cruel updates, the silence inside that small garage grew heavy with purpose. Every laugh, every snide comment, every video clip of public ridicule was now carefully preserved, not just in David's mind, but as evidence. Angela wasn't just an academic. For 2 decades, she'd served as a technical consultant to federal investigators on industrial sabotage cases. One look at David's detailed photos confirmed her instincts. This isn't ordinary tampering, Angela said quietly. I've seen this exact pattern before. Someone inside Precision is stealing prototype data and crippling the originals to hide the theft. Samuel Torres, the retired master mechanic, nodded. I suspected as much. Projects failing in the same strange way. Too neat to be coincidence. Meanwhile, Rebecca doubled down. She created a public Facebook event titled Wedding of the Century, Engineer and Mechanic, inviting the entire company to witness the so-called ceremony on Friday. I even picked a dress, she bragged on her stories, laughing. Something simple. It'll be over in 5 seconds when he proves me right. Comments poured in. Poor guy, he has no clue, wrote Jake. Someone should warn him to quit while he still has dignity, added another colleague. David quietly saved screenshots of every post. His teenage daughter, Jasmine, already skilled with video editing, helped catalog the evidence. Dad, look at this, she said, holding up her phone. She made a parody video about you. It already has 15,000 views. Perfect, David said evenly. Keep everything. On Thursday, Angela returned with new intel. David, you need to see this, she said, laying out maintenance records she'd obtained through a trusted contact. The data revealed a disturbing pattern. 8 prototype failures in 3 years, all following the same sabotage method David had identified. Even worse, every sabotaged project had been led by engineers who were either women or people of color. This isn't only about technology, Angela said. It's about pushing certain teams out. Projects fail, and those leaders are demoted or fired. Samuel pieced it together. And after every failure, the same small circle of engineers takes over. That night, David worked with meticulous precision. He wasn't just repairing the engine, He was documenting every step, building an airtight technical report. "Dad," Jasmine said softly as she brought him a cup of coffee, "are you sure about this?" "They have power." David paused, meeting her eyes. "Remember what your mother always said? The difference between justice and revenge is that justice protects others from suffering what you did." Friday morning, Rebecca strode into Precision Automotive in a bright red blazer, a freelance videographer at her side. "In 2 hours," she announced to her colleagues, "we'll have viral content. A lesson in knowing your limits." Jake grinned. "The WhatsApp group is ready. This will be a meme in minutes." None of them realized David was already on site. Across the street, Angela waited in an unmarked car, professional recording gear set up and ready to capture the moment the tables turned. Samuel stood at the entrance, phone raised to capture every second. David waited calmly beside the fully repaired engine, an almost invisible smile playing at the corner of his mouth. In one hand, he held a thick envelope, evidence far more powerful than anyone at Precision Automotive imagined. Because when people underestimate someone they think is beneath them, they forget that true intelligence doesn't need a diploma to rewrite the rules. Friday, 2 p.m. The company's main warehouse buzzed like never before. More than 100 employees, executives, and even select clients crowded in, eager for what Rebecca had promised would be an educational moment. A hired cameraman streamed the event live on company channels. Rebecca swept in wearing a bright red blazer and carrying a bouquet of plastic flowers for her mock wedding stunt. "Today," she told the camera with a tight smile, "you'll witness a valuable lesson about knowing your limits." David Jackson claims he fixed an engine 5 engineers declared impossible. Let's see what happens. David entered with quiet confidence, toolbox in hand, his calm presence a stark contrast to Rebecca's theatrics. Behind him, Dr. Angela Morrison followed discreetly, professional camera gear ready. "Our groom has arrived," Jake shouted, drawing uneasy laughter. "Where's the suit? You can't marry the engineer in dirty overalls." David ignored the jeers and began connecting the final cables with steady precision. The room fell into a tense hush. "Before I start the engine," David said, voice firm and clear, "I'd like you all to see something I discovered during the repair." Rebecca's smile faltered. This wasn't in her script. David hooked his old phone to a portable projector Angela had brought. "This engine didn't fail naturally," he said. "It was deliberately sabotaged." The first slide showed close-up images of components damaged with surgical accuracy. 3 sensors were intentionally broken to mimic natural failure. "The pattern is too specific to be an accident." A ripple of uneasy whispers moved through the crowd. "This is ridiculous," Rebecca snapped. "Excuses for your own—" "Interesting you mention incompetence," Angela cut in, stepping forward. "Dr. Angela Morrison, mechanical engineering professor and former federal consultant on industrial sabotage. I've reviewed Mr. Jackson's evidence and confirmed this engine was sabotaged using a pattern I've identified in 8 previous incidents at this company." Color drained from Rebecca's face. "What are you talking about?" David advanced the slides. Each case targeted projects led by women or minority engineers. After these failures, those leaders were demoted or dismissed. And guess who consistently took over the projects afterward? Samuel Torres walked from the crowd holding a folder. 40 years here gives a man access to records, he said. "Rebecca, you and your circle collected promotions and bonuses totaling $1.2 million after each so-called failure." Rebecca's voice shook. "You can't prove. This is defamation." David allowed himself a small, hard smile. "I can." "Jake, remember the video you made mocking me? My daughter saved it before you deleted it." The projection shifted to the cruel parody. Gasps filled the warehouse as the clip played. Clients began slipping toward the exits, faces tight with disapproval. "And Rebecca," David continued, "those private group messages where you discussed keeping certain employees out of key roles, we saved every one. The screen filled with screenshots, messages planning how to edge out talented teams under the guise of standards. Thomas Crawford, the CEO, had entered quietly and now stepped forward, his expression thunderous. "Rebecca, my office. Now." "Wait," David said evenly. "I'm not quite finished." He turned back to the prototype, pressed the ignition, and the engine purred to life, smooth, flawless, undeniable. The warehouse erupted, not in laughter this time, but in stunned silence. The engine wasn't just running, it was running better than the prototype's original specs. "This motor hasn't only been repaired," David said evenly. "It's been optimized. Efficiency is up 15%, using techniques learned through real experience, not just textbooks." Rebecca sank into a chair, her bright red blazer now a flag of surrender. Tears of humiliation streaked her face. "It was a joke," Jake stammered. We didn't know." "A joke?" David's voice cut through the silence. "You tried to ruin my reputation, humiliate my daughter, and protect a system that blocks talent because of prejudice. That isn't a joke. It's a crime." Angela stepped forward, calm and commanding. "All documentation has already been sent to the Department of Justice, the State Engineering Board, and the press. Rebecca Williams and Jacob Silva will face charges for sabotage and discrimination." The warehouse went silent. Rebecca tried to rise, but her legs failed. "And about that marriage proposal," David added, shutting off the humming engine. "I'll have to decline. I prefer partners who respect me as a human being." Company security escorted Rebecca out, the crowd parting in stunned quiet. David remained beside the engine, a picture of quiet strength, proof that dignity and skill can't be bought with titles or degrees. Sometimes those who rely on privilege learn the hard way that underestimating someone can be the costliest mistake of all. 6 months later, the plaque on a new corner office in downtown Detroit read, "David Jackson, Director of Technological Innovation, Precision Automotive." CEO Thomas Crawford had acted swiftly. Rebecca was fired for cause and faced multiple criminal charges. Jake lost his job as well, and now struggled with legal debts after being caught trying to sell confidential data. Ironically, the very people afraid David might take their place never imagined he would create something far bigger. Precision gave him an executive role and full funding for an inclusive innovation division. His first project, a mentorship network pairing experienced mechanics with young engineers, was already active in 5 states. Angela Morrison joined the company as a specialist consultant, helping uncover and correct years of systemic bias. Together, she and David uncovered practices that restored careers and opportunities for dozens of talented professionals. "Dad, look at this," said Jasmine, now 19 and studying engineering on a full company scholarship. She handed him a tablet showing a trending post. Rebecca tried to rebuild her image on LinkedIn. The comments, let's just say, the internet remembers. David allowed himself a quiet smile. No respected firm would touch Rebecca's name now. Samuel Torres entered with a stack of reports. "Sales of your optimized engine have shattered projections," he said. 3 competitors already want to license the technology." "And Jake?" David asked. "He tried to sell trade secrets to another automaker," Samuel replied with a wry grin, caught in the very trap he once set for others. Facing federal charges now, that afternoon, David's phone rang. A local radio host, the same one whose show Rebecca once used to mock him, was on the line. "Mr. Jackson, we'd love you to share your story and your new inclusion program. People want to hear it directly from you." David agreed, not for revenge, but to inspire anyone fighting uphill battles. During the live broadcast, the host asked, "How do you feel about Rebecca Williams now?" David paused, thoughtful. "I don't feel anger," he said quietly. "I feel pity. She spent years feeding her own prejudice instead of using her talent to create something meaningful," David said quietly during the interview. "The real tragedy isn't what she did to me. It's what she did to herself." That evening, when David returned home, Jasmine was in the kitchen preparing dinner. "Dad," she asked, "that day in the warehouse, when everyone was laughing at you? Did you honestly know you'd prove them wrong? David wrapped her in a hug. Your mother taught me something before she passed, he said. Dignity isn't about never falling, it's about how you rise again. And sometimes letting people underestimate you is the greatest advantage you can have. Just then, his phone buzzed with a new alert. A Forbes headline lit up the screen. David Jackson, from neighborhood mechanic to automotive industry revolutionary. How one man turned prejudice into progress. Only 6 months earlier, Rebecca Williams had tried to humiliate him for daring to believe that talent knows no boundaries. Today, David Jackson was reshaping the industry itself, opening doors for gifted people of every background. Rebecca had lost her career, her reputation, and her credibility. Jake faced criminal charges. David, meanwhile, had built something that would endure for generations, a legacy of fairness, inclusion, and technical excellence. Because the best answer to injustice isn't destruction, it's creation. The greatest victory isn't crushing those who doubt you. It's building something so extraordinary that their small-mindedness becomes irrelevant. Sometimes, when privilege blinds people to true ability, they unwittingly spark a transformation. A supposed victim becomes a leader. A moment of humiliation becomes the start of a revolution, and what seems like an ending becomes the most powerful beginning. If you believe real justice is built on courage and achievement, subscribe to this channel for more stories where dignity outshines arrogance and true talent always rises to the top, no matter the obstacles.